Welcome to Cryptic Accounts, a podcast by paranoid people for paranoid people. I am your host this week, Dennis Cheney. I am joined by Patrick Ryan. Hello, Pat.
Hi, Dennis.
Hello. And this week on the show, I've done the research. It's Project Acoustic Kitty and the Russian Whale Wars.
That sounds like some awesome punk bands.
We went down. I know. That sounds like either one punk band or two punk bands.
I was optimistic that it was two punk bands, so that way one could open for I saw Project Acoustic Kitty opening for the Russian Whale Wars.
We should name our albums these things. We should just name our albums like super secret government conspiracy stuff.
We should. That would be awesome.
Hopefully we'll get some music up soon for people to listen to.
Yeah.
Cross promote.
That's right.
Well, as usual, man, I had a journey this week.
As we always do.
As we always do. Unlike last week where it kind of scattered, or the last episode I did where it kind of scattered a bunch of different archaeological stuff. This week started out broad, and it started out actually with a specific story that I knew of, but I never read an account of. And then it just went deeper and deeper and deeper into like one paragraph I read in this book. So you ready to get started, my man?
I am ready. I should say that all our source information is available at crypticaccounts.com under the sources tab. Any pictures that end up in this will be on the Facebook and YouTube video. So if you're listening to this through iTunes and we're talking about a picture, that's what's going on.
Awesome. Also, maybe some pictures we didn't talk about.
Yeah, I might just throw some weird pictures in there, just for fun.
So to tell you my journey this week, Pat, I started out, I got this book called Nuking the Moon.
Oh, that sounds like a fun topic.
By Vince Houghton, which was actually we might do an episode on that someday, which was a real government experiment that they wanted to do. And there was a chapter, though, that captivated me, that sent me down this rabbit hole about Project Acoustic Kitty.
Okay, I think I've heard of this.
Most people have, and we'll probably spend the first half talking about it because it's kind of interesting. But we're just going down a whole other rabbit hole here after that. So in the 1960s, the engineers working for America's intelligence tried in vain to develop an artificial cochlea, which is the part of your ear with all the hairs in it that makes it hear.
Yeah.
For use in covert listening devices. Yeah, exactly. Well, you want to create the best listening device. After a time, they realized that the technology of the day was inadequate for such an ambitious undertaking. Understandably, this level of complexity was beyond the capabilities of even the world's greatest scientists and engineers of the 1960s, and the CIA had some of the very best, many of whom worked on a division that is now known as the Office of Technical Services, or OTS, at a time called the Technical Service Division, and their unofficial motto was, "Where a spy can be a kid again."
Whoa, that was like what they all said. Okay.
Yeah, I love the CIA pre 1980s. They were doing insane things before they started selling cocaine to people. They were just about let's get smart, man. Let's create some James Bond gadgets.
I wouldn't say that it was all.
Well, also you gotta assassinate a few dictators.
Yeah.
Now it's at this point that this division of the CIA, someone there, and unfortunately for us, his name has been lost to history, decided to go in an entirely different direction. He said, and we're paraphrasing here, "This is stupid. Why are we killing ourselves trying to make an artificial cochlea for our listening devices? Why don't we take something that already has a perfectly well-functioning cochlea and turn it into a listening device? Eureka. What a brilliant idea. But what animal should we use? A dog would be too conspicuous. Even evil communists would stop to see if they could find the owner of a seemingly lost dog. A rat or squirrel would be shooed away before it could get close to an important conversation. Monkeys are easy to train, but who wouldn't be suspicious if a random rhesus monkey walked up to you in the middle of a top secret meeting?
Oh my God, I know where we're going, and I'm so excited right now. I'm so excited. Okay.
The only animal I know we shouldn't try to use because it would be impossible to train is a cat.
I do know about this. This is
Now,
great. I'm so glad we're talking about this.
a cat, that's perfect. And on that day, Project Acoustic Kitty was born. And that was actually the official title, by the way. This is not something people just call it. There really was a classified, quote, Project Acoustic Kitty.
And you know what? Somebody felt really proud of themselves the day they came up with that.
Oh, I know. I love it. Pack, man. P-A-K. In many major cities, cats are ubiquitous. They come and go as they please, and no one thinks twice about a lone cat taking a stroll in a public park. Or even sliding through the gates of an embassy compound. Which actually, this is kind of genius. Like, if you had to use an animal, like, if you really could create, like, a robot animal, like, this is the one to use. Like, because people like cats, but they don't like them as much as dogs. Sorry, Pat.
No, that's
They,
fine. I mean,
they,
well, they're also not worried about them either. You got to think about people like dogs can be
mm-hmm.
aggressive.
Right. Yeah. They
So a
just be like,
strange
oh, it's
dog
a
may
cat.
not be just a, something that you let pass by unnoticed.
A cat is the perfect cover for a perfect clandestine operation. But as we all know, cats can be persnickety. They tend to do whatever they want, when they want, and how they want, regardless of human pleading, soft cooling, bribery, and treats, or even threats. And you know this. Of course, the
I
scientists and
constantly threaten my cat. He
you
doesn't
do.
care. He
You're
doesn't care
always
at all.
yelling at your cat. And of course, the scientists of the CIA understood this well, but they had a real reason to think that recent developments in brain science had paved the way for an attempt that was seemingly impossible.
Wait, so they couldn't come up with a good listening device, but they thought they could turn a cat into a robot listening device. Like that
By
seems like
controlling
the
its brain.
easier route to go.
Hey, man, you got to work with what you have, man.
Do you think at any
I,
point they tried to remove the cat ears and use the cochlea from cats? Like, I'm kind of curious. There had to have been. Not that I want it to be that way. I'm just saying, based on the CIA at that time,
mm-hmm.
odds are some things had their cochleas ripped out, and turns out you can't use them with a computer.
Nope, you got to go full on RoboCat, man.
Okay. Okay.
So part of this was due to the renaissance in neuroscience that was happening at the time in the mid 20th century, and part of it was due to the CIA's own in-house research. For a decade and a half leading up to Acoustic Kitty, the CIA had been pushing the envelope on what was, quote, possible from applied science and technology.
Wait, they've been trying to
And
make
meant,
robot cats already?
well, I mean, think about all the stuff the CIA did. They were
Yeah.
pushing the bounds of technology, medical research, parapsychology, And this was all part of a program known as, what do you think I'm going to say, Pat?
Oh, I feel like it's something we've touched on before.
Acoustic Kitty was part of MK Ultra.
Yes. Which I don't know.
MK.
I feel like it's come up on this show.
Oh, it's
I think
coming
we
with
keep
everything
on.
with the Men in Black and
That's what I
everything.
mean. I think we keep skirting by it in different episodes, and eventually it's going to be its own episode, I think.
But that's because MK Ultra actually earned its well-deserved notoriety due to experiments in mind control and hallucinogenic drugs and
Yeah.
LSD, etc. But the truth is, many people don't realize that MK Ultra was actually multiple programs, and
Yeah,
in
and see,
fact, up to 150 programs. So you really
I
can't categorize it all as one thing.
I didn't know that because yeah, the angle that I was gonna that I've wanted to cover with it is the LSD stuff.
Yes, and
And
that's the
basically
most famous part.
the men who stare at goats stuff, basically.
People think
Also,
of
because I
MK
think that
Ultra as
falls
like
under
let's
MK
drop.
Ultra.
Yes, it does. Yeah, people think of MK Ultra as like let's drop some acid and see if we can like kill things with our mind. But really, they were also like putting computers in cats. Basically, is what we're going here.
Okay.
Uh, we only know about a handful of these MK Ultra projects, but this is one of them. The majority of MK Ultra documents were actually deliberately destroyed decades ago by the CIA. And unless someone kept a secret copy somewhere, we'll never know the full extent of the particular chapter in the CIA's history. We do know
150 projects, though,
at least
that we
150
know
projects that we know of. MK Ultra was bonkers, man. It just seems like, you know, remember in Independence Day, the movie with Jeff Goldblum and Will Smith?
Uh-huh.
Remember when the dad was like, "Why do you think they spent $150 on a toilet seat?" It's because they're doing stuff like that. Like, this is where the money was going from, like, government spending. It was like, we are going to kill goats with our minds. We are going to. We do know that at least 2 of the sub-projects of MK Ultra centered on the use of electronic brain stimulation and the control of animals. According to a CIA report in the late 60s, one of these, entitled Sub-Project 94, demonstrated the, quote, feasibility of electronic implants and the behavioral manipulation of, quote, several species of animals.
There were 93 other sub-projects that came before that from this one project that we're trying to figure out the electric, like, yeah, it's like it morphed into this. It obviously didn't start here. Like, maybe they started out with, like, can we give a cat a robo leg or something like that? Can we give a monkey, like, a robot fist? Like,
right.
Simple thing. And then they were like, what if? All right, that's Sub-Project 94. And go, Dennis.
And go. There's no specific mention of cats, but the results of the experiments were enough to spur, quote, development of future agency applications. And one of these, quote, applications is the hero of our story, the Acoustic Kitty.
Oh, there was definitely some cats involved in that one.
Oh, yeah.
They didn't just do a bunch of unrelated stuff and like, you know what would be good for this? Cats. All right, move in that direction now. No, there was some trial and error that went into that.
At this point, it's important to point out that there are actually 2 versions of this story. Which up to this point, the stories are more or less the same. Here, however, is where the 2 Acoustic Kitty tales, no pun intended, it's the author, not me, begin to veer off in vastly different directions.
Ooh, are you going to tell me both of them, though?
Am I going to what?
Are you going to tell me both of them?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, okay. So let's get into the first one. The first version comes courtesy of Bob Wallace, who was the director of that department in the late 1990s and early 2000s.
Okay.
Bob briefly wrote about Acoustic Kitty in his book Spycraft, and according to him, the CIA scientists and technicians understood from the get-go that this project firmly fell into the, quote, high-risk category. Inserting electronics into a living organism was not as routine as it is today. And this was several years before even the first heart transplant. Living bodies are not welcoming spaces for electronics. They are very hot, they are wet, they have natural defense systems which fight against foreign intruders. Everything inside a cat is there for an important biological reason. They are streamlined fur machines. There's not a whole lot of extra room there for implants, wires, and batteries. It wouldn't do the CIA much good if the cat listening device worked to perfection, but it blew its cover or damaged the equipment by constantly clawing or licking itself, etc. Or if it couldn't walk straight because it was laden with extra weight of the CIA's electronic package. With this in mind, the CIA, I just would love to work for the CIA back in this day, I gotta say. You can just do anything. You can sit in a room and be like, what if we made a cat a robot? They'd be like, boom, here's $1 million.
Well, it's the place for the spy who wants to be a kid again.
I know, I love it. That puts MK Ultra in a whole other light, knowing that that's their motto.
Yeah.
Like, that really is. Like, it's like, hey, let's put some rat poison in Dad's coffee, see how it goes.
Yep. Pretty much.
With this in mind, the CIA did all it could to maximize the ethical and medical standards necessary to ensure the humane treatment, relatively speaking, of the test cat. The test cat was a gray and white female of undocumented breed. A professional veterinarian working in a clean, sterile environment within an animal hospital conducted the procedure. A 3/4-inch audio transmitter developed by the CIA and an outside contractor was embedded at the base of the cat's skull. You know, the loose skin just below the head of the cat where you or its mother can pick it up and carry it without causing any pain. That's the perfect place for an audio transmitter. The small wire-like microphone was, of course, placed in the cat's ear canal to allow for easy and fluid conduction of sound, and the antenna, made of very fine wire, needed to extend beyond the insulation inside of the cat to work effectively. But it couldn't just stick straight in the air. So to ensure that it remained hidden, it was woven into the cat's fur along her spine. After the operation, Acoustic Kitty was placed inside a recovery area as the CIA techs anxiously waited for the anesthesia to wear off. That's got to be
They were a little giddy, honestly. I mean,
Yeah,
just based on what I know, that they were like, there were bets on whether it was going to be able to, function normal. There was doubters in the group, obviously.
That's got to be the strangest waiting room to be in. Like, you're just waiting for this cat to be your spy device. You're all just sitting around, like, outside
just
the vet.
chain smoking like crazy.
Imagine if you were a person who brought, like, your dog in there to, like, get its shots, and they're, like, just a few minutes, and you're, like, in this waiting room with a bunch of, like, dudes in, like, black sunglasses, and they, like, bring out a cat, and it's just like, what's going on here?
Yeah, no kidding.
Once back on its feet, the cat was put through a series of tests. To the scientists' and technicians' satisfaction, the microphone worked as advertised and provided a usable signal. However, there were other issues. Despite their best efforts at training the cat to move consistently according to mission, results in this area were, quote, inconsistent.
Nobody could have seen this coming.
And the operational utility of Acoustic Kitty was, quote, questionable.
At best.
Even after several weeks of exercises and tests. I love
that made no difference.
The one thing the CIA can't do is train a cat, is basically what I'm hearing here. Like, you could put millions of dollars in a project. You can drug people. You can't train a cat, man.
Nope.
For some reason.
Everybody has limitations. The CIA found theirs. Cat.
So for some reason, obvious to anyone who has ever interacted with a cat, the CIA was having trouble training a cat.
Huh.
Because the results failed to improve, the CIA was hesitant to deploy its new RoboCat in an operational environment without a guarantee on some level of practical control.
Oh my God, what level of practical control do you think you're going to achieve?
I love how, like, they didn't start with trying to train a cat. They started with making RoboCat. Like, you could just be like, look, there's different parts of this plan. Number one, we got to create a RoboCat. Number two, we got to train a cat. Where do we start? It's be like, you think you would start by training the cat, right?
Oh, I thought they were going to go way more like Robo with this, like, kind of like with a controller and stuff.
Well, there's two different versions.
I thought they were basically going to use like a cat husk. A Trojan cat.
This is kind of like a bionic cat situation. It's very 1960s. So, in this version of the story, basically they scrapped it because you can't train a cat. They considered it.
They got to that point and they were like, well, we've met our match.
I want to know where this cat went. I mean, I know where it probably went. It probably went to kitty heaven, but
Dennis,
you gotta imagine
this is a long time ago. So at this point, that cat is definitely dead. Did that cat live through the 80s, though? I think that's debatable. Did it see the 70s? I don't know.
Further proof that all cats are spies.
It is possible. Mine has been following me around a lot when I'm on the phone.
Now, oddly... oh, George. Now, oddly enough... Now, here's the thing. This is only version 1, and we're going to get into version 2.
Okay.
Actually, kind of believe version 2 more for a lot of reasons.
Okay.
Because version 2 of Acoustics, remember the first one came from a guy who headed the office from like the late 90s to the early 2000s, and he's talking about something that happened in the 60s.
Yeah.
Version 2 comes from Victor Marchetti, former special assistant to a CIA director, Richard Helms, in the mid to late 60s.
Huh.
So this guy has the real story, basically.
Yeah, he would have been like handling paperwork and stuff for sure.
He authored a book called The CIA and the Cult of Intelligence, and as that book title suggests, Marchetti became disillusioned with the agency, and perhaps his attitude influenced the version of Acoustic Kitty that he provides. I would add,
Did you mean maybe
maybe
he
he
told the
saw the real
truth?
story exactly, and he's like, "Hey, this is a problem. Like, you're giving us a lot of money to make RoboCats." Now, according to Marchetti, Acoustic Kitty can be summed up in a single word, quote, monstrosity.
All right, now I feel like we're going in more the direction than I've been imagining this whole time.
Yeah.
Excellent. I mean, not for the cats, but
No. And it's probably even worse than what he says. However, Marchetti and Bob's version of the creation of our weird cat hero don't really diverge all that much, it seems. Accepting the fact that Marchetti says Acoustic Kitty's tail was used as the audio antenna, meaning they strung a wire through its tail, basically. And that it was a male cat, not a female. I'm just going to go on a limb here. I bet they did this to like 20 cats, at least.
Oh yeah, it wasn't just one. They didn't put all their eggs in one cat.
Yeah, imagine this. You get all this money from the government, and you're like waiting around, like that whole version that first guy tells, where they're in the waiting room and they're like, "Oh, I really hope this works." Like they're waiting for their baby to be born or something. It's like you don't think the CIA can find another cat?
Yeah, I don't think they suddenly started working on like a budget at this point.
Yeah, they're not like, "Oh, I really hope this one cat turns out." It's like, "Oh, you mean the animal you can go out in the streets and just like take any cat you want?"
Pretty much, yeah.
So the real difference in the stories comes when we turn our attentions to the training, testing, and according to Marchetti, a real-world operational run in an actual living, breathing urban environment. The testing and training was slow, but Marchetti says was actually fruitful. Acoustic Kitty would eventually follow commands, negotiate obstacles put in its way by scientists, and accomplish short missions, such as walk from here. Yeah.
I will say, yeah, the right cat. Like, I mean, you've met my cat. Like, he kind of listens.
That's why I feel like they went through a lot of cats. Like it
Like,
doesn't
that's
say
what I
it in
mean.
the
Like,
book.
you could eventually stop. But I have two cats. The other one would never listen to anything I told him to do. In fact, he's going to do the opposite in pretty much every situation when given the choice.
I just have to assume there were very, very many acoustic kitties.
Yeah, sadly, I would put money on that.
Which again makes me sad that nobody at the freaking CIA didn't start by training a cat. You could just start by seeing if you could train a cat. You don't have to put microchips in it.
Well, but how are you gonna know if you can train them with the microchip in them, Dennis? What if they?
There you go. Well,
They
that's why you start by training the cat, man. That's step one.
well, hindsight, Dennis. I mean, this is easy for us to look back at this and go, well, this is what you should have done.
Now, also, they might have been fooling themselves, though, because they claim they trained the cat to do these progressively harder, more complicated commands.
What kind of stuff? Okay, so what kind of stuff did they tell them? They like.
Sit, stop, walk here.
All right, I could call a cat. He's not sitting down.
And I think this is given away by the next segment, which says that the only hiccup in the plan was that the cat, from time to time, needed to eat. And that Acoustic Kitty would be doing his testing, then get hungry and wander off in search of food.
Yeah.
And that.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a cat.
So it's like, are you really training him, or is he playing with you until he's hungry? Because if you can't get him to operate with you when he's hungry, you're not. I don't know. That's where the MK Ultra experiments with electronic brain stimulation in animals come to play.
Okay, here's where we go. Okay.
Obviously, the CIA couldn't have its invention skipping away in the middle of a mission to look for Meow Mix. So the vets and techs went back to went back into rejiggering Acoustic Kitty's wirings, turning off its natural instinct to seek sustenance.
Oh.
So they did a second surgery, which was successful. And and basically turned off its need for food. So you have a full-on robo-kitty now. You got like
it now doesn't have the desire to eat
nope.
ever, I'm assuming, which I think you're going to get a short shelf life with this cat if it's never going to want to eat.
This
Like eventually it's going to die.
What do they say in Proverbs about the foolishness of smart people? So
I think that applies here, yeah.
Marchetti never provided a detailed minute-by-minute accounts of the first and only CIA field test of Acoustic Kitty. But here's what we do know from his version of the story. They let him out, and only feet away from the curb, Acoustic Kitty was run over by a taxi.
Oh, poor Whiskers.
He got no promotion, no raise, no boat, just the indignity of having to be scraped off the pavement.
I mean, wow.
So
Did not see that coming.
They went through. That's what I loved. Honestly, if it didn't end that way or end with Acoustic Kitty getting like the nuclear codes, that story would stink. Like it has to end either with him getting immediately hit by a taxi or like being like a super spy.
Oh.
So no matter which version of the story we believe or which we really, really want to believe, and frankly, I believe the second one because I'm not sure why you make that stuff up. Also, the guy was actually around during the time. We are fairly.
That second one is the version I've heard.
Yeah. Oh, you heard about the taxi even?
Yes.
Oh gosh.
I want to say we talked about this a very long time ago.
Maybe in the previous podcast, yeah.
Yes.
So, what we do know is that the CIA left a paper trail and a heavily redacted document entitled.
Like they do.
This is the title of the document with redactions, because you know how they black mark things out?
Yeah.
It's titled Redacted Views on Trained Cats, redacted for redacted use. And in this document, the CIA gave its verdict. Although the report acknowledges the, quote, remarkable scientific achievement of training cats to move short distances, and that the work done on this project over years, quote, reflected great credit on the personnel who guided it, particularly redacted, whose energy and imagination could be models for scientific pioneers, quote, the CIA decided the program was not practical and Acoustic Kitty was scrapped for good. Or
well,
was it?
I will say this. That title sounds like a really fun Mad Lib. I'm going to be honest with you.
Oh, yeah. I'm sure that, yeah. And this was it. I read it. I was like, oh, awesome. What a hilarious like thing the CIA tried to do. And it is pretty funny. And then she had to go and write one more paragraph that sent me on my own freaking research trail. And that is that evidence from the last decade suggests that some people think the Acoustic Kitty program may have never ended. Or if it did end in the United States, it was continued by one of her allies, and I'll add enemies. Newspaper headlines from around the world provide proof. Quote, Iranians arrest 14 squirrels for spying. I looked all these up, by the way. These are real. Quote, sharks sent to Egypt by the Mossad. Hamas arrests Israeli spy dolphin. Hezbollah may have captured an Israeli spy eagle in Lebanon.
I was wondering when we were going to get to some birds.
Yeah. Saudi Arabia nabbed an Israeli tagged vulture for being a Mossad spy. Turkey clears bird of spying for Israel.
That turkey had a really good attorney. Or that bird had a really good attorney in Turkey.
He had a Jewish attorney. It's working for Israel.
Apparently.
Abbas accuses Israel of using wild boars against Palestinians, and the favorite, non-Israeli headline, quote, police in India nab a pigeon suspected of foul play from Pakistan.
Oh, wait, well, I'm just happy with that writer.
This guy's great. Everyone should go pick up this book.
Go ahead.
Vince Houghton. What were you going to say?
I was just going to say I love that Iranians arrested 14 squirrels.
Yeah.
Can you imagine, first of all, catching 14 squirrels?
I know.
And 14 specific squirrels, not just any squirrel.
You gotta
14
find
that
the
are
Jewish
spying.
squirrel. You gotta find the Jewish squirrel.
Oh, were they also spying from Israel? Was that a thing?
Well, if you didn't read that, almost every headline was Hamas, Turkey, Egypt, Mossad. It's almost all, and here's the next pivot in this episode, Pat. This trend has become so prevalent, there's actually an entire Wikipedia page dedicated to, quote, Israel-related animal conspiracy theories.
Are we about to get into the weirdest anti-Semitism ever?
Yeah, we are, man.
Oh, okay.
Basically, anything that happens to people in the Arab world, like there's some people who think the Jews are doing it if it involves animals. So.
Really?
Yeah.
I have not heard any of this before.
So here's some highlights, just the ones that I found interesting. Zoological conspiracy theories involving Israel are occasionally found in the media or on the internet, typically in Muslim-majority countries, alleging use of animals by Israel to attack civilians or to conduct espionage. These conspiracies, and honestly, man, the Mossad is pretty cool. If anyone ended up taking, like, Acoustic hitting to fruition, it would be the Mossad. Like, so these conspiracies are often reported as evidence of Zionist or Israeli plots. Number one, boars and pigs. On several occasions, the Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas accused Israel of releasing wild boars to destroy agricultural fields in the West Bank in order to cause damage and produce and intimidate Palestinians. Every night, quote, he says, they release wild pigs against us. Abbas was quoted as saying in one speech, an Israeli government official rejected the allegations, commenting that it's a pity that the Palestinian Authority president chooses to propagate such rubbish. On May 5th, 2016, a 10-year-old Palestinian girl was bitten on the hand, either by a wild boar or a pig, we don't know, and suffered shock as a result of being bit by a pig. Palestinians blamed Israel for deliberately releasing boars into the West Bank to deliberately attack villagers as a way to keep them off their land, while others claimed that the Israeli West Bank barrier affected the habitat of wild boars, possibly leading to higher concentrations of the animal's population in certain areas.
Okay, so
this is the most believable. Like,
I mean, yeah, I'm kind of like, well, I mean, it's a tactic, I guess. Like, it's one that you can, like,
where are they getting
distance
all these
yourself.
boars, man? Like,
There's that, though. Also, like, that's the best thing you can come up with to attack villagers?
Yeah, it's more like a nuisance. So here's the next one. Hyenas. In January 2016, Palestinians accused Israeli settlers of releasing wild hyenas.
Israeli settlers?
Yeah, they call them settlers when they're like out in the West Bank and stuff.
Where are they getting hyenas from?
Which is weird too, because if you know anything about the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, you're talking about people who also live there.
Yes.
You're talking about Jews who also, like, I'm not going to go release hyenas on my streets because I don't like a Palestinian guy down the street.
Well, that is how I got the neighbors on my block to move out that I didn't like. So I released hyenas. I didn't go outside for about a week. And then I let animal control take care of it. It all kind of worked itself out. Just, wow.
Here's maybe the weirdest one. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just... So we're not even... This one isn't even, like, accusing, like, the government. This is, like, just people. Like, just normal Jewish people that are
they're just saying
moving to the area?
Settlers, yeah, the Jewish settlers.
Okay. Is there any for this one?
I don't. Well, here's the weirdest one before we get into the next phase of our episode. This doesn't just the Palestinians accusing Jews of releasing things. In February 2018, Hassan Fuzimardabad, a military advisor to the Iranian supreme leader, accused Western countries, especially Israel, of spying on Iranian nuclear sites using lizards and chameleons,
Okay.
which, according to him, quote, attract atomic waves. He says, we found out that their skin attracts atomic waves and that they were nuclear spies who wanted to find out where inside the Islamic Republic of Iran we have uranium mines and where we engage in atomic activities. I love that because they had supposedly don't have nuclear stuff, but then they see like a chameleon on the wall and they're like, it's the Jews.
Yeah, okay. Based on what was happening in the 60s, though, with Project Acoustic Kitty,
What?
by
Yeah,
2014, 2016,
exactly.
I definitely think it's possible to not only, you wouldn't even need a living creature at that point because you could do it robotically.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
you could almost, I'm pretty sure you could probably make it pretty close to where it's almost indistinguishable.
I still think you could probably drive. I've had this idea before because I'm weird. I've thought before you could probably drive around an animal if you put little electrodes in its brain.
Probably.
And, yeah. And then if someone found it, you'd just be like, you're crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it goes even deeper. Let's go to Egypt now. In December of 2010, several shark attacks occurred off the south shore of Egypt. Following the attacks, in an interview with media, the Egyptian Today television show, a captain of the army said that, quote, a famous diver alleged that GPS tracking devices found on one of the sharks was in fact a guiding device planted by Israeli agents.
Okay.
This prompted in a television interview for comments, the governor of that area of Egypt said, what is being said about the Mossad throwing the deadly shark in the sea to hit tourism Egypt is not out of the question, but it needs time to be confirmed. The Israeli Foreign Ministry, in response, suggested that he had seen Jaws one too many times, quote unquote. And the governor ended up dismissing his claim. There was, in fact, a professor of marine biology in Suez, Egypt, who pointed out that the GPS devices are used on many marine biologists to track sharks and not to remote control them.
Yeah, I was wondering if that was going to come up in anybody's explanation. Like, they tag stuff all the time with GPSs to see where they go and how they migrate.
Exactly. And this has actually been, oddly enough, it's not just sharks. In 2015, Hamas claimed that they were controlling dolphins off the Gaza coast.
Because they also found GPS tags on them?
Here's the thing. I'm pro-Israel, but man, don't count out what they're saying just yet.
I'm not. Like I already said, based on what we heard about Acoustic Kitty, I'm not ruling a lot of this stuff out. But also, the shark one is the only information
Right.
I got was a GPS tracker, and I'm like, well, come on, guys, you know about that, right? They track sharks.
Yeah, I know. This is
Whales.
a low information part of the world. So,
well, not the government though.
Yeah, I know. But hey, you know what? Governments sometimes they'll let stupid stuff fly because you know what? You're the governor of some area of Iran. Someone gets bit by a shark. You could say, sorry for not keeping the sharks away, or you can say, it's the Jews.
Well, I mean, I know where my gut goes, but
yeah, I know what I would do if I was these people. You just say, well, it's not my fault, it's the Jews. And they'll believe it because of the way
you're not losing a lot of Jewish votes in Iran.
No. So when this accusation of the dolphins happened, Iran's news agency called it Israeli-made robot dolphin equipped with espionage equipment, including video recording cameras.
Okay, but
that's Acoustic Kitty with dolphins.
I realize that.
Yeah.
But I'm just, why would you pick something that's confined to the water, though?
Well, I love that you asked that right now. I want to give one more quote because I think it's funny.
Okay.
The Palestinian Daily News said, quote, Israeli has not just stopped on bloody attacks against the Gaza Strip. Now it has recruited a watery pet, the dolphin, known for his friendship with humans, to use in operations to kill our commandos.
Oh, so they're using dolphins to go after the Navy, I'm assuming?
They're using dolphins to kill naval commandos, people who swim in the sea. Now that sounds nuts, doesn't it, man?
Well, have any naval commandos gotten killed by dolphins in the sea?
Oh, you just wait, man. We are officially on to part 2 of this podcast.
I see okay, can we talk about this picture?
Oh, you see the picture? No. We're not going to talk about it till later.
Okay.
All right.
Because I really want to talk about that picture. But all right, keep going.
We will. Part 2, my friend. I said Acoustic Kitty. I said Russian whale wars. And it is Russian whale war time, my friend.
Okay.
In early April of 2019, Norwegian marine researchers apprehended a beluga whale. It had been They apprehended him. What do you mean?
Yeah, for speeding.
Yeah, he was going too fast. The whale had been harassing fishers by headbutting their boats, gnawing at nets, and the scientists were asked to look into it. Typically, I don't know if you know much about whales, they don't tend to harass people.
Yeah, that's not usually their thing, no.
What they found was an aggressive whale wearing a harness with the words, quote, equipment of St. Petersburg stamped onto it. The harness had a spot that could fit a GoPro camera. And the researchers believe the dolphin might be a Russian military asset.
Okay.
If this whale comes from Russia, and there is great reason to believe it, then it is not Russian scientists, but rather the Navy who did this, said researcher Martin Buer of the Norwegian Broadcasting Network. The chief reason the scientists at Norway's Institute of Marine Research believe the beluga whale may be a Russian spy is because the harness didn't resemble the kinds used for scientific research. A marine biologist told the BBC that Russia has a naval base in the region and that they're known to train domesticated whales. Right now, it just sounds like propaganda, but we're about ready to get into the reality of war whales, my friend.
I mean, I know you can train whales to an extent. They are intelligent. Okay.
Victor Baronets.
I think they're easier to train than cats, probably.
Yeah, they're smarter. I don't know if they're smarter, but, they're definitely more...
Cats just have attitudes and don't really care what you think.
Yeah, I think cats are smarter than we think, but... So... Here's where this becomes a reality, my friend. Victor Baronets, a Russian military colonel, told a Russian broadcaster that the country doesn't use whales as spies. Though, he said, they are trained for war.
What?
He said, quote, we have military dolphins for combat roles. We don't cover that up. In Crimea, we have a center for military dolphins, trained to solve various tasks, from analyzing the seabed to protecting a stretch of waters, killing foreign divers, just like Iran accused the Mossad of. Russia's admitting they have this. Killing foreign divers and attaching mines to the hulls of foreign ships.
All right, that makes sense. No, yeah. I mean, dolphins are super smart and they can be trained. And they're kind of not super friendly things, actually, anyway. They're
not going to be like, oh, I believe in peace and love. No,
they do a lot of mean stuff, actually.
I think you could teach a dolphin communism.
They just, for whatever reason, like humans.
Yeah, they're like dogs. We have war dogs.
Yeah.
And here's the real history. So... In 1965, the Soviet Navy, this is from Forces.net actually, which is like a very respected military magazine. In 1965, the Soviet Navy opened a research facility near Sevastopol, which is in Ukraine. And this is back during the Cold War, so they owned Ukraine at this time. That was not a separate country. To explore the military uses of marine mammals. This was then passed to the Ukrainian Navy after the fall of the Soviet Union, marking the end of the Soviet military Dolphin program. Retired Colonel Viktor Baranets, the same guy I mentioned before, who observed military dolphin training in the Soviet and post-Soviet areas, said that the mammals were part of the broader Cold War arms race between the U.S. and the USSR, and he said the Americans actually looked into it first. So this exists. The programs exist. It is.
Apparently, it does with. Okay. All right, maybe Israel is using dolphins and stuff to attack people.
That's the thing. They say it's crazy when it's Israel, but it's like, well, if the Soviets can do it, if the Americans can do it, like maybe we gave them a dolphin. And officially,
they're pretty smart over there with a lot of stuff. Like a lot of research comes out of Israel.
Oh yeah, and their Mossad, their version of the CIA is crazy. They do insane stuff. I remember reading a book in high school that was like a history of stuff they did that had been declassified. Like they will like steal a jet. Like they're nuts. Like they'll do all kinds of stuff.
Huh.
So it has been claimed the military dolphins have not just been trained to like bite people and like lay mines. They've been trained to lay underwater mines, locate enemy fighters, or even to seek and destroy submarines using kamikaze methods.
Wow.
It has even been speculated that dolphins have been used to carry poison darts, sonar jamming devices, with the potential for combat between different countries. Marine mammals are, it's a thing. We have whale wars, man. If World War III happens, it's coming with the whales. And
obviously.
At this point, I'm like, okay, all right. Well, one general says there is stuff, so I kept looking deeper and deeper. This stuff is real. This is like mainstream news real. We just don't talk about it.
Yeah.
So oh, go ahead.
I know, just apparently, like, yeah. I think I've heard about this briefly, and I don't know, it never fully registered, I guess. I didn't realize how far they went with dolphins. I knew there was a little bit of stuff with dolphins. I did not realize they were like kamikaze and subs and.
Yeah, I always heard the dolphins were like. It kind of makes sense because you're like, oh, we use dolphins to find mines. It's like you don't have sonar for that. You don't like. You're obviously using them as weapons, like. Yeah. And now you can talk about the picture. I included a picture here.
Okay. There's a dolphin jumping out of the water. What is attached to its flipper?
I don't know.
Is that a gun?
I don't know, man. But that's not out of the question, basically. That's a U.S. military person with a dolphin.
It's like, it's either a camera or some sort of weapon.
That's an AP photo, too. This is like a legit photo. It has not been photoshopped.
Man.
Look at this evil little face. It's just looking to kill.
It does. It actually does look kind of evil in this picture.
Actually, I've always thought dolphins were like the most friendly looking thing, but seeing it with a gun attached to its little flipper, it kind of looks like the aliens from Alien.
Yeah, a little bit.
I'm seeing you in a different way now that you have a weapon.
Yeah.
So remember now at this point, the Soviets started it in Ukraine. Ukraine became its own country after the Cold War, but they kept the program going. So in 2013, Russian state media agencies reported that 3 dolphins had escaped from a Ukrainian naval base with weapons attached to their heads.
Okay.
In search of suitable mates. So they escaped for mating. The outlet, it's kind of like the cats with cat food. The outlet quoted a former Soviet naval anti-sabotage officer as saying that this type of thing had actually happened during dolphin training programs during the 1980s. Quote, if a male dolphin saw a female dolphin during the mating season, then he would immediately set off after her. But they usually come back in a week or so, said an ex-Russian general. Now, here's where the whale wars begin. So after the Russian annexation of Crimea, the part of Ukraine they took over in 2014, the dolphins were captured. Ukraine demanded return of their dolphins, but the Russians refused. Some
high-grade dolphins.
He
We
is
need
a
another
high-grade
special
military
forces unit.
dolphin. I know, they took back their dolphins. Some believe that the Russians were planning to retrain the dolphins as Russian soldiers, with a source telling Russian agency news sources that engineers were, quote, developing new aquarium technologies for new programs to more efficiently use dolphins.
What?
We've entered.
That sentence doesn't even make sense. New
Yeah,
aquarium technologies. You got to
yeah.
think of a better filter to get these dolphins more motivated? Like, what do you mean?
I know you got to train them. I don't know. It's like new gym technologies, basically. You got to train them indoors before you release them
Better
out.
hoops, stuff like that.
Yeah.
That's your sardines.
And here's the crazy thing. So I did not include this in the show, but I will say I read from several credible news sources that shortly after this, Putin actually they bought like 5 or 10 dolphins from like different zoos. They were
Oh
like
yeah.
they were getting back into this. They're like,
Russia has a fleet of dolphins right now.
oh, they
Just on
do.
standby.
They are, yeah.
Another reason why I just can't go in the ocean.
No, I mean, not if they escape. Like there are all these news stories from back in the day when they escaped that were like, do not swim in the Black Sea. There might be a dolphin with a knife or a gun attached to its head.
Whoa.
So Russia, when they invaded Ukraine, they stole the dolphins back. Great victory for Russia. Yes, very nice.
Yes.
So in 2018, the Ukrainian government's representative in Crimea, Boris Babin, claimed that the dolphins died patriotically defending their country by refusing to follow orders or eat food provided by the Russian invaders.
Oh yeah, I'm sure they were feeling very patriotic. That's
He literally said that the dolphins went on hunger strike as to not help the Russians. This is how weird stuff is in Ukraine.
wow. That's not propaganda at all. Okay.
He told the Ukrainian newspaper, it's funny they deny the existence. Everyone denies the existence of these dolphins, like until someone else gets the dolphins, and they're like, "Hey, they got the war dolphins."
Yeah, we had the war dolphins. We weren't going to tell anybody. No, they got the war dolphins, so now we got to talk about it.
Exactly. That's the way it works. So Boris Babin told the Ukrainian newspapers that the dolphins were more honorable than even some human soldiers. Quote, the trained animals refused not only to interact with the new Russian coaches, but refused food and died sometimes later. Many Ukrainian soldiers took their oath and loyalty much less seriously than these dolphins. So let's pour one out for these dolphins, man.
Well, I mean, that's one thing. I mean, you hear that all the time about dolphins is they keep their word and they're loyal. And if they take an oath, they will die upholding that oath. That's why there are Boy Scout leaders, there are generals in our army. That's why we put them in high places of government. Because they uphold. Yes, I'm talking about dolphins.
Yes. I was in a real class in like 2006, I want to say. It was like a political philosophy class, and this dude went to town on the professor saying, like, someday dolphins will vote because we know they're sentient. I will never forget that.
Oh. Well, it sounds like we're getting there.
So at this point, it's like, who knows? Like, there's a lot of different stories that I didn't include here. Some people claim the dolphins were like sold. Ironically enough, mainstream news reports that the Russians couldn't do much with the dolphins, and so they sold them to Iran to possibly be used by Iran. So Iran might have the war dolphins now. So now we got Israel, Iran, Russia, Ukraine. Basically, dolphins are fighting our wars now, is what I'm trying to say.
A dolphin standoff happening in the Middle East.
Yeah. But everyone kind of agrees, or they did agree kind of midway through the last decade that like the dolphin thing was over. Until in 2019, a journal published by Russia's Ministry of Defense claimed that Russian specialists have communicated with dolphins, crashed computer programs, and even looked into safes using the power of telepathy. As highlighted by the Russian media outlet RBC, the February 2019 issue of Army Collection featured a story titled "The Super Soldiers of Future Wars." In it, a reserve colonel of the Russian army detailed a variety of bizarre abilities related to parapsychology, a science once used by, quote, Babylonian priests. According to the colonel,
He's got witchcraft.
They're using witchcraft in Russia, and according to the colonel, Russian forces employed these techniques, these magical techniques, which he compared to superpowers. Quote, the uninitiated know little about this unique technology, but one aspect is clear: telepathic contact. Russian specialists achieved it by working with dolphins. They mentally gave the animals commands that they performed. So,
okay.
Now we think, Cold War stuff, but apparently we're now psychically controlling dolphins. Also, at least 4 countries have dolphins, have military dolphins. The U.S. Navy, for its part, denies having ever trained its marine mammals to injure humans or to carry weapons capable of destroying ships. And I'm going to call this out because from what I read, whenever they were contacted about these Russian dolphin stories, they would say, oh, we don't do that. But other stories which talked to the U.S. Navy admitted we've been using dolphins as far back as Vietnam.
Imagine that. They contradicted themselves? That doesn't sound like anything that happens within our intelligence community at all.
They say, oh, the Russians have military dolphins, and they say that you started it. They're like, we don't. But then, another article about, interesting things we did during Vietnam, the Navy's like, yeah, we use dolphins. And one of the things they trained dolphins to do was to find Viet Cong that were, in the rivers and stuff and, attack them. So we have military dolphins.
So what you're saying is we definitely do attack people with dolphins, or have in the past. And why would we stop? Because it worked.
It's funny because we admit there's dolphins. In fact, if you scroll down, I have the same picture again with its proper heading. It's a dolphin named K-Dog that they say is used by the U.S. Navy for hunting mines.
But K-Dog.
But in other contexts, we admit, we train them to attack people. And here's where we'll end. Because the big story is here. Does the U.S. I just keep imagining, World War III is going to be, fought by dolphins. It's just going to be, a beluga whale with, a laser on its head, shooting at a dolphin with a missile. And then there's, a big gray whale with, a robot arm attacking a ship. I think this is a possibility, honestly.
I mean, I think they're going to definitely be on the board. Mm-hmm. They're going to get used.
Yeah, when you play Risk World War III 2020, there's going to be dolphins.
That would be, yeah, whoa.
So the U.S. Navy basically says, yes, we have dolphins, but we only use them for defense. They even, put out a thing that's it would be crazy to give dolphins weapons, we don't know if dolphins are smart enough to know who to attack, etc.
And we've definitely never delved into any of those questions because we don't like to do stuff like that where we just think of crazy stuff and then we try it. That's not really our style, historically.
No, I mean, except for that one time we tried to make a cat into it.
Well, there was that and the 150 other things that you knew about during that particular project. But other than that and a handful of other things that we've done, basically there's just constantly news coming out about us doing stuff that we're not doing anymore.
Nope, that's exactly correct. And so keeping in the vein of when this whole Russian whale war thing started in 2014 through 2018, basically for the last 5 years there's been these different stories about the Ukrainian dolphins. At that time, the military denied that they were using dolphins. However, step back before that was in the news, The Guardian reported in 2005 on what may be, and this is from a real news article, the weirdest Hurricane Katrina story yet, that U.S. military-trained dolphins may have been released into the wild with weapons by Hurricane Katrina's devastation.
Oh no, we've got rogue weaponized dolphins in the water.
Well, it's the same thing that happened in Ukraine, but it happened to us after Hurricane Katrina. And from the Guardian's articles, experts who are studying the U.S. Navy's cetacean, which is I think a word for like whales and dolphins, training exercises, claim that this is very specific. 38 mammals could be right now in the wild carrying quote toxic dart guns on their head.
That's a lot of animals to have toxic dart guns.
Oh yeah, and I'm not even wasn't getting into this, but we also use seals. We use walruses. Basically, every little friendly thing you see at the zoo, like we've attached guns to its head and we've tried to make it.
Yeah, obviously. You don't start by putting a, antenna on a cat and stop there.
No, you
obviously want to see what else you can do to it. And at a certain point, of course, weapons are going to come up.
Oh, why wouldn't you?
Because again, spies being kids. Who doesn't want to see a cat with a laser on its head? That got tried.
Be a kid again. Oh, I'm sure it got tried. I'm sure once lasers were invented, they put it on everything's head.
Yep.
The experts stated that divers and surfers risk attack from a species could be considered one of the planet's smartest. Now, at this point in 2005, before this became a controversy, the U.S. Navy admitted it has been training dolphins for military purposes, but has refused to confirm that any are missing. I love refuse to confirm. That means like, bro, there's some dolphins out there with dart guns on their heads. Like, I'm not going to confirm or deny.
I'm not going to tell you, but I'm not going to tell you you're wrong either. So, I mean, you do the math on this one.
The U.S. Atlantic bottlenose dolphins have apparently been taught to shoot terrorists attacking military vessels. Which one? I had to look this up.
That's how
I looked this up, and this actually makes sense. So, basically, if you're not in the water, you don't have to worry if they can tell if you're a friend or foe. You just say, kill anything in the water. Kill people that are in the water. And that's what they did in Vietnam. They're in a boat, and they're like, if you find a Viet Cong who's hiding in the water, kill him. Attack him with your teeth. Use the knife on your head, which that would be the worst way to die. You're like in a war, and you're
just
like,
confused.
I hope I don't get shot. And then it's like a dolphin with a knife on its head attacks you.
So I never saw this coming.
This feels very this is not as heroic as I thought it would be. We have been doing that since Vietnam, and so it's not that crazy to think that 50 years later, if you're in Iraq or Afghanistan or wherever, that we've moved on from knives to guns, and you're training them to, it's not that crazy.
No, and you know what? I take back any judgment I may have cast on the spy squirrels earlier. I think those definitely were spy squirrels now.
I know. I'm certainly even the lizards. I don't know, man.
The lizards I kind of believe out of everything because they were like looking into like nuclear stuff, and I'm like, well, that kind of makes sense that a government would deploy a lot of energy to try and spy on something like that.
Yeah, this research really made me realize like what animals are normal places. Like I didn't know there were hyenas in Israel, for instance, but it kind of makes sense. They're kind of close to Africa. They border Egypt.
Yeah. Now I don't trust any strange animal I see out ever at all. Again.
The final quote I had here is the experts in 2005 after Hurricane Katrina who have studied the controversial issue of dolphins in the U.S. defense program claim that it is, quote, vital that they are caught quickly.
Well, that was like 15 years ago. And we don't... Nobody ever said they did or didn't catch them, so pretty safe to assume they probably didn't catch them.
They either caught them, or I would say if I'm a dolphin with like a gun on my head, like I'm probably not going to attack people. I'm going to like go kill something like really big to eat.
Yeah. Especially if I know I can use it. Yeah, they're using it. They're just living in the wild now with weapons until they ran out of ammo.
Right.
And that was probably the day they died, the day they went to shoot something and it didn't work. I forgot how to fight completely. I became completely dependent on this weapon. No.
What is a dolphin without his gun? So, bottom line, if you share our show's philosophy, everyone has military dolphins and whales, and
birds aren't
they
real.
have, yeah, birds aren't real. They all have weapons. It's not just defensive, and yeah, man, World War III will be fought by whales. It's very um, Orwellian.
Oh,
That was a terrible joke. Yeah,
it was.
but I love that picture of that dolphin with a camera slash laser cannon on his arm, doing his salute. And that's the story of Acoustic Kitty and the Whale Wars, Pat.
Man, that was quite the ride. That was.
Yeah, you're telling me, man. You experienced what I experienced over like 4 days, like in an hour and a half. Like, it's a lot.
Yeah, I was really all over the place on this episode. I didn't
What's
know how
weird
to.
about this though is this is like all true, basically.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
yeah, that's kind of how most of our stuff is kind of ended up being. Like, there's more proof that it's probably true than there is that it's not.
It's just scattered about. Like the next time I hear about like Iran, you know those like mysterious explosions in Iran that have been happening, like
Now I'm gonna wonder if a dolphin did it.
yeah, no kidding. Like for real, like every time you hear about a boat being blown up, I'm with like, was it a dolphin? Was it a
Yeah,
walrus?
yeah.
I feel
Like,
like walruses, like they keep all these articles. I kept it to whales because they're obviously the best. They're the all stars. But it kept mentioning that we also use like walruses, and I'm like, how? I just can't imagine a
well,
walrus.
you could probably pack a lot of explosives into a walrus. Think of how blubbery they are.
Yeah, they must be the kamikaze people.
I bet pretty heavily. Like, yeah, they go for like the large sea vessels.
Oh, poor walruses. But
Man.
that's the world we're living in, man. Like we're fighting whale wars all the time.
Well, be worried about every animal except for the cat because that that's the one you don't got to worry about.
No, you don't.
If it attacks you, it's for its own reasons. It had nothing to do with the government.
And it's not listening to you. It's just not that into you.
Yeah,
So
pretty
get over
much.
yourself. Yeah. But I
That was
also
fun, Dennis.
thanks. Thank you.
What else were you gonna say?
Oh no, sorry, I interrupted you.
Oh no, I was just signing. I was just shutting it down.
All right. Well,
I'm done. I've had enough with your robot animals.
it makes you wonder though, like if they were implanting stuff in these dolphin heads and stuff like that. Like,
Yeah, I think we can pretty safely assume yes, they probably were.
you look at this photo that we have of this dolphin, and it's like there's something not right in his eyes, man. This ain't Flipper.
No,
This is a dolphin that's been trained to kill.
this is Assassin Flipper.
Yeah. Well, thank you for listening, everyone.
Yep.
Please subscribe to us on whatever platform you're using. Like, subscribe. We're really trying hard to give you the best content and to expand your minds. So,
Yes.
if you've listened to an hour and a half of Whale Wars and found it as amusing as we do, which it is pretty amusing, show us some love. Share it with some people. That's the most important thing.
Really, yes, it
Share
is.
it with people you know. So.
Well, thank you, Dennis. Thank you, everybody. We'll be back next week. I will have another weird thing for us to talk about. So, thank you. Bye.